Miggity miggity mic check 1 2 1 2. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Hawaii Comedy with James Monte podcast. I think this is episode 16. We are 16 episodes in. Look at that. Look at some of you thought it's like, nah, he's not gonna. He'll probably quit before the fifth one. He's not known for his longevity. Nah, that got weird. But yeah, welcome, folks. Welcome to the Hawaii Comedy with James Monte podcast. I'm still getting scam what do you call that? Scam messages on my Instagram. Getting out. It's so weird, but it might be the only attention that I'm getting. So, sorry, I'm checking my Facebook. Look at me. I'm professional, like. But, yeah, I got, I'm, even when I post stuff and they're like, oh, share it on whatever city records. And like, can you tell them to share it? Why you come to me and tell me to share it to them? Go to them and tell them share it. Why I got to do all the sharing? I already posted it. That's, I took the first step. You commented. I know you're scamming. I got people telling me they want to have, they want me as their sugar baby. That one I was interested. I was like, how much does that pay? And the woman or man, not sure, but the robot said $700 a week. I was tempted. I was like, well, what do I have to do? And they're saying basically just be their friend. I was like, friend? Like right now how we're talking, like we're friends now? And they're like, oh, you can be like my baby. So I'm like, am I going to have to like dress up like a baby? Because then, maybe $750. I mean, 700 might be too low a number. All right. Hey, what's up, Johnny Rocks Hollywood? The most loyal. I should change your name, see? Johnny Rocks, the most loyal Hollywood. Hollywood. Go check him out Wednesday. Today's Monday. Wednesday. Go check him out Wednesday. He is, I believe he's hosting the show. It's a musical comedy show for all these comedians that incorporate music into their show at Blue Note. So if you guys have the time, go check it out. If you're in Waikiki, go check it out. It's going to be a lot of fun. Funny comedians. We'll talk more about that later because my guest today can bring that up. Just no more scams, or at least be interesting. I got one, like people are like want me to like invest in Bitcoin. It's like, it's not doing good right now, right? Well, I guess that's the time to buy. Oh no. Maybe I should think about it. But I don't know. Maybe we should just get the show started. I'm starting to ramble. What do you guys think? Yeah? All right. Let me bring this in. Oh, it's already there. Look at that. I'm getting better at this, but I keep forgetting. Terrible.
Live from the middle of the Pacific Ocean, it's Hawaii Comedy with your host, James Monte.
Island days, clear blue water, and mountain ranges and dancing daughters. I can't get enough of these island days. Won't you take me back to Honolulu? Yeah, that surf is high and I am too. Sing songs all night long. my flight again. I was sleeping here with my new friend. Oh, yeah. Island days, clear blue waters, and mountain ranges and beautiful daughters. Yeah, I can't get enough of these island days.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Tavana, for that amazing music. Appreciate you letting me use that on my show, man. Give it up for Tavana. Tavana808.com. You guys can check out his website, find out where he's performing. Very talented individual. I don't know, maybe I'm a homer. I don't know. I'm proud because he's Samoan, man. So, and when I found out, I was like, oh, yeah, I'm sorry bragging. Is that messed up? I didn't brag about him before. He's just an individual. No, it's not. I have more pride now. I'm more proud because check out his music. You can listen to it on Spotify or go to his website, on Apple Music, even on YouTube. Tavana808.com. Check out his website. How about this amazing shirt, folks? Look at this. Got the brown today. I'm representing the brown. I'm representing UPS. I don't know. Now, this is an Oahu Golf Apparel t-shirt or shirt, which I love very much. You can check out their website, oahugolfapparel.com. Oahu Golf Apparel does hats, t-shirts, golf accessories, and they're locally produced here in Honolulu, Hawaii. They offer fun, stylish activewear on or off the golf course. Make Oahu Golf Apparel a part of your game. And the reason I like it, because they make it my size. This is a 6X. 6 extra large. Yes. And it's comfortable, it's light, it's flexible. It's also stylish, and it has a collar. So, you know, when I go to nice places, I can be like, bam, pop my team OGA collar. How about that? Also, I'll give a shout out to Comedy U Hawaii. Comedy U Hawaii, you can check out their website, comedyuhi.com. Go to comedyuhi.com and just start scrolling down, and you'll see all the events that they have. And it's so many. Just to name a few, there's Tuesday nights at Slack Key, which is inside Hawaiian Brian's. There's stand-up comedy there. Wednesday nights, they have Anna O'Brien's. They have comedy there. Some Wednesday nights, they're at Blue Note, Hawaii. Thursday nights, they're at Taqueria in Kapolei, Kamakana Ali'i. There's stand-up comedy there. There's so many stages that comedyuhi.com brings to the people of Oahu. So go check out that website, find out where the shows are. There's open mics if you want to give it a try. You know, those of you that work with that guy who's always telling the jokes, try to get him out to do one on stage, you know, and we can really see if he or she has what it takes. So check out that website, comedyuhi.com. That's with Comedy U Hawaii. Oh, man. I'm getting better at reading these things. How about that? A little bit of energy with it. Let's check out the comedy crew in the comedy corner. Paul Ogata. After that pic of us went up on IG where I'm wearing the red shoes, I had a foot fetish guy DM me. Man, you should sell him those shoes. I mean, you can like sell them for twice the amount that you bought it for, and tell him it's never been cleaned and you've worn it, you sweat in it. Now, enjoy. And then because you charge it for twice, you buy yourself a new pair, and then you made money. Boom. I think I'm a scammer. Johnny Rocks, you know what they say, if the shoe fits, wear it? Yeah, I think that's what they say. All right, let's get this show on the road. Ladies and gentlemen, this person that I'm bringing into the Comedy Hawaii with James Money podcast has been doing comedy for a long time. He's originally from St. Louis, Missouri, but he's been in Hawaii so long that he's pretty much Kamaina. I mean, I didn't even know he was from St. Louis until he told me. I thought he was from Hawaii because he's been doing tons of shows here. He's been working with Augie T for a long time. He works at radio stations. So I know the radio, like The Bomb and High 93. I know those names. I don't know the name of the company that owns it, but he works for one of those. By the way, I want to give a shout out to Steezy and Rella from High 93 FM. Thank you guys for the shout out. You guys are always saying nice things about me and my daughter. Thank you guys so much. I love you guys. High 93. If you guys are listening to the radio, go check them out in the morning radio. Steezy and Rella. Okay, also, this person that I'm bringing out has promoted many shows, brought out many stages and stage time for people who want to do stand-up comedy, people who wanted to work on their craft, people who want to, improve and maybe give it a shot at one of the open mics. People like Tumua Tuine, who would always show up at these open mics, and then started featuring in them, and now he's blown up. There's more comics that are coming out, myself included. I'm always at one of the Comedy U Hawaii shows. So if you guys are looking for comedy, go to comedyuhi.com. Find out where the events are. You never know. You might get a Tumua sighting. He pops up at a lot of these shows. So do I. We're a little bit stuck up that we're like, hey, can we just pop in? We don't get it all the time because maybe other people have popped in. Lanai is another one that pops in. So go ahead and check it out. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome to the show, Jose Dynamite. That was a long intro.
I'm helping to welcome myself here onto the show by applauding my own self. That's awesome, man.
And I noticed you use your hands too. So
yeah,
you're helping yourself with your hands. Cool.
By the way, I work for Pacific Media Group, and that is the radio stations that I work for, and we have we're the only statewide, locally owned radio group where we have 20 stations across every single island. So that's what I do. And a lot of people, when they hear I'm in radio, they think, oh, what time are you on the air? What station are you on? I'm actually not an on-air DJ at all. I am in advertising sales, so that is my background. So just to
you're the guy that makes the money
out there. Yeah, or tries to. I need to a little bit more, but yeah. So, hey James, good to see you. We both had a very busy weekend. You just had you went to Maui. I saw the pictures of the Krispy Kremes, so thank you for bringing me some donuts back. By the way.
I did bring some back. You just weren't here when I ate them, so
I'm
your loss.
Out. Yeah. Well, my loss is your gain.
Yeah. And literally, I'm gaining weight. But it was a busy month. I mean, if you go back to February 2nd, when you helped me with headlining at Blue Note, the head of insecurity show at Blue Note, and then allowed me to perform in a lot of your showcases and even at your workshops, which I appreciate. And okay, so before we get into Jose, let me just share something with you guys that happened with me this month. So after I did the hour headlining, some people, they say they when you do a special, then you kind of throw it away because you have to start all over. So I'm not throwing it away because it wasn't a special, but it was, I did an hour, so now I want to work on the new material. Mm-hmm. So the week after, oh man, the new material struggled. And then I kept working on it, kept all the way 3 weeks later. And then at Hawaii Theater, opening up for Paul Ogata, and that material, like all the way up until the Aloha Comedy Festival, that material that I was doing was struggling because I didn't know where the punchlines were. I didn't know where, the twists and the turns and the little things here were. And then when I did it on Maui, it destroyed.
Yeah, so it's right on.
That's what the stages that you provide helps with. When you take the material and you keep working on, because at Taqueria it got a little bit of laugh, but it wasn't as strong. At Slack Key, I would say it wasn't even funny. So
Well,
going all the way
working on
to
it. It was all fresh, and that's kind of one of the things that you've got to do. And I mean, even when we did the workshop, which I appreciate that you attended the workshops too. I mean, it's that's actually a sign that, like, hey, you're somebody that really wants to learn and grow, because no matter how big you get on stage, and how big of a draw you are, you still have jokes that, okay, how do I make this funny? How do I tighten it up and do that? And so I remember you did a couple of new jokes in the middle of your set at Blue Note, and then you wanted to try and fine tune them. You were coming out to all the shows. You showed up to the workshop, and that's really what it takes to get it, is just the repetition of being on stage and doing them over and over again until you find, like, okay, now I got it down. I figured out, okay, it takes a couple of times testing it out on stage in front of different audiences before you find out, okay, this is how it needs to go. This is where the audience wants me to take the story to make them laugh. And that's really cool for me, getting to see the comics, like, really fine tune their jokes and then crush it for the first time. So yeah, right on, man.
Yeah, it was cool too, because what it also did was it gave me that momentum as far as performing. So before February 2nd, I've only did a few here and there in January. I wasn't doing that many. But February 2nd, I performed over and over and over. And it got me into a rhythm where, I guess you're a little bit sharper now. So when I was performing, I was able to adjust on the fly. And on Maui, this is a Tumua's show on Maui, and which was packed, by the way, and the roars that came in, and also working on not just the material, but the way it's said. And I was telling you, I was like, I'm trying to do a different style. So I've been watching other comics that I don't normally watch, and kind of adapt to what they're doing, which is what I see with like Ronnie Chang, JB Smoove, which was more passion, more like if you were angry, it wasn't just I'm angry. Like, I showed anger. Like, I showed how angry I was with this certain thing, or I showed how much this thing frustrated me, not just through my words, but also the tone and my body language. And
yeah, Lewis Black is one of those guys that does that I love. His style is just how he gets really angry on stage. Just Kelly and I, we went and watched Ron White a couple of weeks ago, and he has, he doesn't really get angry on stage, and he has a way of telling the story that it might not be the funniest things, but the way he tells it is super funny and very sarcastic. And I really enjoy, like you said, just studying how different comics, perform and do, build their set and what their voice really is. Because that's what it is about finding your voice of who you are when you get on stage.
Yeah. And it's funny because it's also from being at your events and watching the other comics as well. So, like, there's some stuff where you would do, and your commitment to what you're saying and how much you believe in what you're saying. And I was like, oh, I can see how much that weighs on him. Or even Joe Kopp, who I'm going to have on next week. He has a bit where he's talking about vegans and how he acts. I don't want to go in his set, but he acts out this thing, this confrontation he has with an oat. And it's so silly. And he agrees he says it's so stupid. But his commitment to to that performance and to that scene, no matter how silly it is, it had me rolling. I just couldn't stop laughing. And I told him, I was like, dude, it was funny. He was like, no, it's stupid. I was like, yeah, it's so stupid that we were all laughing. But
Yeah.
so it's not just the written word, but it's the way it's presented. And I think that's something I found the month of February, performing at all these events, that Comedy U Hawaii has been putting out and offering a lot of stage time. So appreciate it, man.
Oh, you're more than welcome. Something that Champ told me about a year ago, and it was the first time that anybody had said this to me, and I was really surprised. But one of the words of wisdom that he was given from Eddie Griffin, it's not trying to say something funny. It's trying to say, no, not trying to say funny things. You need to say things funny. And that's really what the point is. You can write one of the best jokes. It's just so well written and everything. But if you don't say it funny, then it's just gonna flop. And that's really the key is how, presentation matters. This isn't Filipino food where the presentation doesn't really matter. It needs to look good to the people.
Yeah, and you can see that with Eddie Griffin's performance, where he goes all out with the physical. Like if he does, one of my favorite things that he does was the Michael Jackson dance. But this was a special that was back in the '90s when he does his Michael Jackson. It was amazing. Look, we're looking into the comedy corner here, and Kelly. Speaking of Kelly, Paulo Gata, this is exactly why I told you I was jealous about your shoes. Yeah. Those shoes really stuck out. I tell you, they weren't just red.
Oh, those bright red shoes.
Yeah, they were like fire engine
If you look
red.
at the picture on the stage, you can see them the reflection of the shoes into the actual stage. How bright red they were when he was up there. It was awesome. Yeah.
See, I used to wear.
Paul told us like he got those shoes because what was it? He was during the pandemic. He wasn't doing all the shows and everything, and he just decided he was going to go get some shoes. Paul's here listening. Hey, Paul, how you doing?
Yeah, he's talking about what you were saying, the old lesson of don't just tell them, show them, right? Like how you're saying, representing the joke. So it's I guess he could also use that for his shoes too. Don't just tell him about my shoes, show him my shoes.
Show him the shoes.
So he says, "Hi, Jose."
Hi, Paul.
Back in
oh my God,
back home, right?
Yeah, we had, I want to say a huge shout out to if you were at any of our shows this past weekend, thank you so much. And something that happened this weekend that is very dear, like near and dear to me that I love. And you'll agree with this when I tell you, because this is something I've said to you a long time ago when you first started up Mars Comedy. So this weekend, there was the Black Voices Matter comedy show on both Friday and Saturday at Manoa Valley Theater, the Aloha Comedy Festival, which had 25 different shows, including the Friday night show we did with Paul over at Hawaii Theater. And then on Saturday night, with 3 days to promote it, we put together a last-minute pop-up show over at Blue Note Hawaii. And it's what I love about it is a lot of these shows did really well and people came out and supported them. And I've always had this belief that, for comedy, we're not competing against other comedy promoters. I never saw that. When you were doing your shows, I was never competing against you. I was competing with you because a lot of our product that I have is going to be the same product that you have, which is the comics. And we want the shows to do good. And I always felt there's no reason why you can't have multiple comedy shows happening at the exact same time at completely different locations, and they should be able to sell out. People other promoters shouldn't get mad if that happens, if nobody shows up to their show. Do a better job. There's like 900,000 people that live on this island. get people, promote, get out there, and spread the word. And the greatest thing is that now we have a lot of great comics that are talented enough that I feel like we can hold that and be able to have that ability to do multiple shows in a night. I mean, during the 2020 and 2021, there were many times where I was doing Wednesday night shows at Hawaiian Brian's in the big room and at Blue Note at the exact same time with completely different lineups. And each show was almost completely sold out. And
Mm-hmm.
that just shows you that how much local people, because it was all local people coming to this, will come out
Mm-hmm.
and support as long as you're putting out a good product that they're getting their money's worth and they're laughing and they'll
Mm-hmm.
come out again. And I've seen so many regulars now, like that, like Chanel. Chanel, she comes to all of our comedy shows, almost every single show that we have. She'll be there.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see her because her hair will match her dress or her shoes or something. It's always a different color. I can't do it. Mine's just going to be looking like my cat.
I thought you just unleashed the sun
Yeah.
when you took your cap off.
I'm actually sunburned right now because we all went to Wet and Wild Hawaii yesterday as the wrap up to the festival. We all went over there and hung out at the water park, and I got so sunburned on my shoulders and you can't really see how red my face actually is with the blue wall behind me here, but I am like emitting heat right now, and it's not just from being overweight.
I guess that's the showman in you, where oh, let me stand in front of a blue wall, so they don't really see my red burning face. Comedy Corner, Kevin Chang, good show, Paul, Jose, Simone, and Mane. Thank you, brother. He was at the show. He took pictures after. I appreciate the pictures that you post or that you shared with me that I'll post soon. But so, yeah, I mean, you've been here. I was mentioning earlier in your introduction, you've been here a long time, where you're pretty much Kamaina. You're a local boy. I mean, you get all the local humor. You got all the local jokes. But you're originally from St. Louis, Missouri, right?
Right, correct.
Or am I
yeah,
wrong? Okay.
I moved out here in '96. No, you're correct. I moved out here to go to Chaminade University, and I've actually now lived in Hawaii longer than I lived in St. Louis. So I've been here long enough to know that I am technically a Maluhini, but I am Kama'aina by Foodland card discount. So there you go.
Did you say Mahuhini or
Maluhini? Maluhini.
Is it Maluhini or Malihini? Mahuhini?
I think it's Maluhini. Maluhini. It's not
Okay,
Malahini. Let me look it up. I can go in the Google right now.
Or is it Mahuhini? They said Mahuhini.
Oh, I think it's Malihini. Malihini. Okay. See,
that's what I was gonna say. I said
that, then I'm not Kama'aina because I can't say Malihini. I'm still Holly.
Close.
There you go. How's that?
Close. Yeah, see, Kevin Chang was correcting us. He said Malihini. No. Hey, so we have Krusty Pete tuning in from Germany. Oh, he might be considered our wartime
The correspondent.
Yeah. So stay safe over there, my man. He put Hermione, but he means Germany. But I like Hermione. Hermione sounds like I would picture somebody from Germany saying it. Maluhini and Hermione. So, but
it depends on what the
to,
country identifies as. What's its pronoun?
His money or their money. So, as far as your comedy, like, when did you come across it? Like, you came down here for college, right? And then where along your journey did you come across comedy or even stand-up comedy where you got up on stage and performed?
Well, there was actually a talent showcase at Chaminade my senior year, and they just wanted to give an opportunity for different people to just get up there and do whatever they wanted. And I just decided I was going to try stand-up comedy for some reason. And I had my roommates that helped me write these jokes. And I remember the very first joke that I told was it was a conspiracy theory that the cat lady who was feeding all the stray cats was in cahoots with the cafeteria, and the chow fun that you're eating is actually meow fun. And and I got a single laugh the entire set. And then about 2 years later, in 2001, that's when John and Ellie Schneider, brought the Laugh Factory to Honolulu, and they first opened up their doors over in the Queen Kapiolani Hotel in the floor there. And so they were doing an open mic night. Well, they called it amateur night at the time, and you were allowed to get up and do 2 minutes of jokes. And the radio station that I was working with at the time, the sales rep had said, "Oh, you're so funny, Jose. You should come to do this. You should try doing comedy. I know you said you did it once before. Try it again." So I showed up there after her encouraging me to do it for 3 weeks in a row. Bombed terribly every single time. Just was terrible. Got to see some great comics though, because that was the first time that I saw Joe Coy. That's the very first time I got to see Ralphie May. And I forget who the third comic was that I saw there, but those were the two big headliners that were there. Those two of the 3 nights that I got up during the amateur night, and this is when they were both just kind of starting out, and I stopped performing for about 2 years, and then in 2004, that's when a newspaper article in Midweek had a picture of Paulo Gata with Kathy Tanaka on the cover, and they were talking about regents of Hawaii comedy, and it was they were doing their shows. Paula and Kathy was doing stuff with, I think, Andy Bumatai. Frank DeLima was doing his shows. Lanai and Augie was doing their shows at Brew Moon. Bo Irvine was doing Sharky's Comedy Club over at All Star Cafe. And and so I reached out to Kathy Tanaka, who was a friend of mine on Facebook, and I said, "Hey, I tried comedy once before. I just saw the article. How can I get into doing that again?" And she sent me over to Sharky's Comedy Club on a Thursday night for their open mic night. She told me that's how you sign up. And I went there. The comics that were there just kind of brought me under their wing, told me about all these other open mics that nobody knew about. And I just started going every single week. So although my first time on stage was 99, I consider 2004 when I actually started doing comedy, because I made the decision to go to open mics on a very regular basis. And, it's really, I feel like I've truly been blessed with doing this and being able to perform alongside the comics that I've been able to work with and know. And I've learned a lot about, just the comedy.
Your signal doesn't seem to be coming through that well, Jose. You're frozen there, but let's see if we can get him back. Yeah, he cut out. I have to re-invite him. Go ahead and click on the let's see. Hang on, real quick. Okay, so Jose's cut out. He's got technical difficulties. We're going to try to get him back. Now it's about me. But I appreciate you guys tuning in. Let's go to the comedy corner, see what the crew has to say. Kelly, thank you. I love the way you tell your story, life experience in a way we can relate that makes us laugh. Thank you. That's I think as far as comedy goes, that's where majority of like the connection between the audience. I think that's a huge part about I guess getting laughs. Where Louis Anderson, when I opened for him at Blue Note, gave me some advice where he was saying when he did jokes about being big, about being fat, it was funny. But when he started talking about family and the relationships with people, that's when he got into superstardom. Hey, we got Jose back. Jose, there you are. I
Hey,
think the heat from your skin just like fried your Wi-Fi or something.
may take off the let the heat kind of.
I think it's your moving.
I
So
don't know what that word
from
is
what
I'm
I
looking
learned,
for.
from what I learned through IT, when I was IT, video is uses up way more bandwidth than audio. So try not to move around so much and
Okay,
just and talk. Yeah. No, you can
that
talk
is
regular. You don't have to talk like
hard
a
for me
robot.
to do. Yeah, but that's very hard for me to do. I have no idea. I'm just looking straight ahead now at this. I can't even. I was gonna lift my hand up and point at the dot, but I don't want to move. I just want to stand there. I don't even want to look at my eyes down. So,
and it's working now. It's working fine now because all the fast movement. If your Wi-Fi isn't that strong, then it sacrifices video for audio. So audio will continue, and then that's why when you froze, your screen froze, we could still hear you, and eventually it just cut out.
oh,
So
okay.
you can
Where
move, just
where
don't
where,
move
where
so
was I?
fast.
Okay. I'll
Um,
try to. I'm just not gonna move at all.
yeah, you'd be like a ventriloquist. So we're talking about how you
Uh,
get your start with comedy. So you this was 2004 is when you feel like you officially started doing stand up. When did you start
yes.
working with Augie?
So also in 2004, there was at the time I'll list all the comics that were kind of coming up at in the scene at the time. It was me, Kathy, Stan Eggy, Kaleo was kind of starting out, but maybe a little bit longer into it. Um, Sean Felipe, Elroy Ruiz. Um, we were all the guys that were really trying to like just very fresh onto the scene. There were a handful that stopped coming around that you don't see anymore, and some that were doing it a while longer that you don't see them anymore. But at the time, I was working over at Clear Channel, which was the radio station that Lanai and Augie were on, and they were doing their show over at Brew Moon. And after a couple of weeks of doing some of the open mics over at Sharky's and the other open mics, I asked, "Hey, how do I get on my this guy John James? How do you get on? Do you think Augie would let me perform and open for him?" And he said, "Just go ask him." So I asked Augie. He said, "Come to Brew Moon on Wednesday. I'll give you 3 minutes," and he did. And I started going up and doing comedy. Oh, Timmy Matos is another one. I forgot to give Timmy the shout out. He was there, and so I started doing. That's really how I started working with Augie, and then he filmed his Hawaii theater, live at the Hawaii Theater in I want to say September or October of 2004, and then come January after the DVD was released and he started doing his tour, I basically went along with him and paid my own airfare just to travel with him and do 3 minutes to 5 minutes of stage time on every one of his shows. And since I worked with him at the radio station and knew how to sell advertising and sponsorships, I was able to help secure a couple of sponsors to pay for our airfare and hotel and cover some costs and get them some advertising. And that's really how the relationship really developed, with me and him being an opening act for many years. And then I remember there was one time when we were at Brew Moon. This is I forget, maybe about a year after I had started. A lot of the comics, they're no longer brand new. They've developed a little bit more material, and so everyone's just kind of sort of started doing a little bit longer and a little bit longer. And so by the time Augie got up, the crowd had already seen about an hour's worth of comics from openers. And so he had said, okay, tonight you guys are all doing 3 minutes. If you go a minute or a second, I don't know if it was 3 or 2 minutes, but it was like, if you go over your time, you're not going to be allowed to open anymore. And Timmy and I were the only ones that we did our exactly 3 minutes, said thank you, good night, got off stage. Everyone else went a little bit longer, and that's kind of how we got to keep, stay on the tour with him and became his opening act. And for 9 years that's what I was, is his opening act. And eventually he, after a while, he was helping me working on a lot of my jokes and the writing.
Oh, he's frozen again.
He would work on it with me, and he'd help me a lot with developing the act. And slowly over time, it would turn into a 10-minute opening set and a 15-minute opening set, and then eventually a 20-minute set. And by the time, was it 2009 or 2013? I forget which year it was, that I started to headline my own show over at O'Toole's. I had built enough of material and kind of, if you want to say, burned through a lot of it, that I've kind of held in the, I stopped doing that. I was like, okay, I'm able to actually do a 50-minute set and headline. So that's how I got my start headlining my own shows, was at O'Toole's. And the years that I spent promoting his shows, and also in radio, working with regular like nightclub promoters and nightclubs, I had a good understanding of what it takes to really put on a good show and what the expectations are. And the ultimate goal is, you want to make sure you're giving the audience a good experience. If you don't look at it from the audience experience, you're really ruining it for yourself and for them and the venue. Because if the audience has a good experience, and that comes from how, even talking with the bartenders and the servers and the owner and setting expectations of what you need. Like, okay, we need to make sure that the servers know, come in, get the drink orders early, and refill their drinks early before the show comes on. While the show's going on, it's okay to go up to the tables and get their drink orders and check on them, try and talk quietly. Because if you come in and you don't get their drink orders, the audience members, they're going to be kind of distracted looking at for you as a server, as opposed to paying attention to the show, because they just want to order another drink. And then if you're bringing butts and seats every week, the venue's going to be happy, and you're selling. It's called show business. And I learned a lot over these years, and it's been rewarding.
Yeah, something that so Andy Bumatai taught me early, which was, we're there to sell drinks. So the rule of thumb is, back when he was doing it, you can hear the bell from the cash register that the bar tender had. So it was when that stopped going, when the bartender is no longer selling drinks, it's time to wrap up the show. Because people who are there drinking, enjoying the show, it's a good time. But when they pay their bill or when they stop drinking, then now they're just waiting for you to end. And that's something that I recognized at my February 2nd headlining show, where I saw the wait staff standing up against the wall, not in a rude way. It's just that they weren't taking orders. I guess people had already started paying their bill, so it was like I reached like the minute 5 mark, and then it was like, I guess it's time to wrap this up. But let's go to the comedy corner real quick and check out what the comedy crew has to say. Diamond has asked, have you ever taken your comedic stylings into the acting realm? I don't consider myself a real actor. I've done some things, but not my comedic stylings yet, because not full-time comedic actor. But Jose?
I've only acted in one movie, and that's your movie, Dick. So you tell me if my comedics. Maybe you need to start coming to more of my shows and let me know if my comedic stylings are in the acting realm. How you like that?
So,
how you like that twist of things?
So Paul is asking, as a show producer, are there comics you are putting on your stages that you enjoy more than the audience does, or comics the crowds like, but you just don't get it?
Oh, wow. This is a great question, and I love this question. And one of the things that a lot of times comics will come up to me, if I book them on a show, and I'll be honest, I don't watch every single performance because it gets kind of exhausting for me. Sometimes I'll just watch, and if I hear laughter, I'll just go in the back like, okay, they're doing their job, and I don't really pay attention as much all the time. There are a handful of comics. There's one, I'm going to name John C. as one guy who is very, he's a very obscure type of comedian, almost like, I'm not going to say like Stephen Wright or Mitch Hedberg, but his stuff is really out there. And whenever he's on, the comics really love him. And it's, for a while, it was almost 50-50 whether or not he'll get the audience going or not. And I don't always get his material, but when he kills, he crushes. If it's struggling, he's actually gotten a lot better at taking those moments and turning it into something funny. And so he's one guy that I know that the crowds like, that maybe I don't necessarily get. There are some comics that I'll put on my stage that maybe I don't really like. I don't know what I know that they get good laughs and the crowd gets a good response. I don't always get it myself, but the point of me putting on the show is to be able to give them a platform where they can be heard. And if they're making people laugh, I think it's the fair thing should be to put them on, whether or not I'm a fan of them or not. It's not my job to put people on my stage or on a stage or in a show just because I think they're funny. If the majority of other people find them funny, that's what matters. And I know a lot of people that don't think that I'm funny. I call them my friends that don't come to my shows.
What? There's your friend Dick Diamond jump in and say, "You're top notch, brother."
Oh, Dick, you're top notch. Hey, it is Timmy. Yeah, I miss you, Matos. I'll see you in a few months. Timmy Matos is holding it down in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. How much snow is in the ground right now? I wonder that, Timmy. Do you guys have snow over there in Pennsylvania right now? Oh, Timmy doesn't think I'm funny, you son of a bitch.
So that means he's your friend.
Yeah. He's my friend. He doesn't think I'm funny.
Were you gonna jump in on that with the punchline there, Jose? Or
You were
All right, so
2000, 2006 or 2007. Um, Augie was recording his. He was on the radio for Maui and Kauai because we were both sitting out our non-compete for 6 months because we couldn't work here on Oahu because of our contracts. So we were recording the Augie radio show for Maui and Kauai at Augie's house, and then emailing basically each on-air bit to the radio station. Timmy and I ended up getting into the biggest argument we have ever had in our entire life, and Timmy was pissed where he wanted to throw down. I don't even remember what the argument was about. Timmy, do you remember that? I don't know. That was something that was Augie was just cracking up, and like the listeners loved it, and they thought it was like completely staged, but it was the most real argument we had ever had in our entire life.
oh, he doesn't remember. And
Yeah.
so Timmy, although if you think of his name, you might think, oh, little Timmy. Timmy's a big dude, and Timmy's also not loud as in like obnoxious loud, but when if he's gonna snap at you, it's gonna be loud. So you must have been like a little bit scared, Jose, maybe a little bit.
Probably, but I was also in better shape at the time, so I knew I could have run away from him. So I wasn't too worried. Yeah,
I can just imagine. So because you guys traveled right to do
yeah.
comedy with Augie, you guys must have some. It's got to be some. So like Champ mentioned when we were talking at Blue Note one time, some of the hazing or some of the troublemaking that goes on. What are some of like because I think we all enjoy crazy road stories, and you don't have to say any that might upset somebody who's part of the
I won't
story.
say
But
anything that'll upset anyone, but I got a couple of good ones. So
okay,
within 2 weeks this happened where Augie had we were doing a show up in Honokaa at the People's Theater, and uh, at the time it was myself, Lanai, Champ, Timmy, Augie, and I think Turk was there. And Augie had gone to do the sound check over at the theater, and when he came out, the show producer was like, "Hey, Augie, there's a woman here at the side, and she brought you a pie." And he's like, "A pie? Yeah, a pie." And so Augie didn't think anything weird of it because a lot of times local people love to bring him gifts and stuff. So he went up to the lady and like, oh, she gave him the pie, and she said, "Oh, well, before you open this up, here, read this." And so he opened it up, and there was this weird note, like just basically against the war in Iraq, and it was signed anti-imperialist. And he's like, "What is this?" And she said, "This is for you." And then she shoved the banana cream pie into his face. So, and then she ran away. And it was because he had been voicing some radio commercials for the Hawaii National Guard, and she was opposed to the war. He's like, "I just read the commercials," but and then he had to call the police and file an assault charge against this woman for assault with a pie. And about a week later, we were in Hana on Maui, did a show over there, and it just so happens that the electricity in all of Hana Town went completely out. And so there was a guy that had his fishing light. He brought it. He moved his truck into the front of the door, turned on his fishing light, and that was the spotlight that we had to use for the rest of the show. And the thing that I remember being just so funny about it, and how just showing how Portuguese Augie is, even though there's no electricity, there's no sound, he was still holding the microphone the whole time, just yelling, even though he couldn't, hear anything that was coming out of it. So those are two funny stories from when we were on tour. And then one time we were in Saipan, and I don't know if if you've ever been to Saipan. There's two big cliffs called Suicide Cliffs and Bonsai Cliffs. And I think Suicide Cliffs is like the top of the mountain that goes down to the ground. Well, Bonsai Cliffs is the one that's right off the edge of the island straight into the sea. I might be having the two mixed up. But anyways, we were on these mopeds and I saw this guy standing at the very edge with his fishing pole. I'm like, oh, let's go see what he's doing because we didn't have anything to do that day. So we're walking along the lava rock patch to get out to this guy and see him just casting his fishing pole. And I'm like, oh, did you get anything? And then all of a sudden you can see that he caught something and it looked like this big down in the water. And we're about like 50 feet or 100 feet up from there. And he starts reeling it up. And like when it's at the surface, there were about 12 other fish that were about this big chasing it. I can't do it. Chasing after it. And by the time the fish got up to the surface, up to where we were, I realized it was like this barracuda that was just massive. And I realized that the fish that were chasing it were some massive sharks. And I was just freaking out at how many there were right at the top of the surface. And while I was thinking that, this brother just brings the fishing pole back and then I have this barracuda flapping right at my face. And I'm just like, okay, do I dodge to the left? Do I dodge to the right? Or just stay still and hope he brings it around me? And it just kept coming right at my face, and I ended up just dropping down to one knee and sliced my knee open on the lava rock. And I had to hobble back to the moped and see if we could hurry to the convenience store to get some Band-Aids. And what I found out is that the speedometers on the mopeds in Saipan, they say the top speed is 110 miles an hour. It's not. It's 40. So yeah, so that was my other story of going on share.
That's crazy. That takes the cake right there. Hey, back up a little bit. I think it's better when yeah, because I think it doesn't cut out as much. Some more, a little bit more.
Back up.
Yeah, there. Yeah. Well, that's too much now. That's too much.
I feel like I'm moving too
Yeah,
much.
kind of
All
like
right.
that. No. I think it was. I think when you're up close, it's just too much going on. No,
Oh,
you're
okay.
fine right
So
there.
I can.
Okay. I'll back up too. That way you look, we look like the same or whatever.
It only took us 58 minutes to figure this out.
Paul says it takes the pie. This story takes the pie. That's crazy. Did do you know if they ever caught that woman?
They
Threw the pie
did.
at Augie's face?
They found out she was, I guess, a librarian at the Pauilo Library, and she was just like some old hippie anti-war protester. And yeah, that's what it was. I don't know if she ever got arrested or if she just had to pay a fine or something. But the funniest thing was the Hilo Tribune Herald, that like the end of the year when they do the year in review stories, Augie getting pied in Honokaa was one of the top news stories of the Big Island that year. So that tells you how much actually happens on the Big Island, that a comedian getting pied in the face makes the top 10 news stories or the top news story of the year of things that happen in the Big Island. So
Sheesh. Well, so you go from being an opener and performer, and then now you have the promoter hat, a showrunner. You also are doing workshops, which so it looks like you're trying to develop the scene. I know you still want to perform, but do you think do you see yourself going more towards the promoter slash showrunner rather than performer? I mean, I know you still perform, but like going forward from today, what do you see Jose becoming?
well, I see myself kind of continuing with this route. I can see myself eventually, doing some tour stuff. Like to travel and be able to perform in different cities. And our youngest son, he's now in college. So, he doesn't have as many activities that he used to have when he was in high school. So I know Kelly and I, we would love to go travel and perform in other states. And like, I've made a lot of connections with comics visiting us from out of town that I think that'd be kind of cool to be able to do some shows in other cities. Um, I the last time I headlined was I headlined my own show over at Blue Note, and about a year ago, a little bit more than a year ago, and I'm just I don't feel like I'm ready to headline again, just because, and I know we talk about this a lot. There's a lot of pressure, and you're wearing different hats when you're promoting and going on stage and running the room and handling the back end stuff. And so I feel like if I were to headline, I wouldn't be able to put on the best quality show for the audience that they truly deserve. And I'm probably better off doing like a 20 to maybe pushing 30-minute set right now. But I do think it's important for me to actually develop the comics and develop the talent, because we only have, there's only so many comics that we have here, and the faster I can help develop them along, the funnier they'll be, and the funnier they are, the more that the audience will keep coming out and appreciating it, and it'll lead to more opportunities, because if we have more comics here in the scene, then there's more opportunities to put on more shows, or rotate the comics through different shows. Or if we get a bigger audience, this is really what I want to do, is be able to give the audience better, or the comics a better pay than what we have, because right now it's not. You're getting paid a little bit, and it's gas money, it's drinking money, it's food money, but it's not, unless you're someone like Paul's level or Tumua's level, it's not really a living wage where you're actually making your earning doing shows. And I know you and I talk about this all the time, and it's really cool to see like who the next group of comics are that you're excited to watch. And I'd like to give, if you don't mind, and I want to hear who you think are the top 5 next comics to really watch out here, if you think about it. And so I actually wrote this down earlier.
When you say next 5, where is the cutoff? Like, are you talking about? So today in our scene, am I in that group, or is Kenny in that group, or is it? Where would you start? Like, give me a.
I'm gonna exclude myself and you and the comics that have headlined, over at at Blue Note. So I'm saying like the next level, because I already see you, Simone, at a different level, and even myself, I take myself out of the equation, because I'm always going to be pushing myself to be a comic to be seen at one of my shows. So these are the ones that I'm going to say right now: Kenny Kusaka, Jack Schwab, Daryl Bonilla, Jasmine Bautista, and Long Locks. These are the ones from Oahu. And I'm also going to do 2 shout outs to the neighbor island comics, Justine Smith and Chino LaForge. Those are the ones that I say are the next potential really big comics to blow up. You might be asking, how come Andrew Joyce isn't on that list? He actually headlined last St. Patrick's Day over at Blue Note. So I consider him kind of established in that sense.
So he's not on the list either.
Yeah, he's not
in the group that he headlined.
He was already in the group. These are the next ones to join the next group.
Man, I would go with because I would say I would show up because of my daughter, who was still in high school and playing a lot of sports, and you, Patrick, Pepper, Erica, everybody that promoted shows knew if you booked James, he comes in, he goes early, and then he leaves right away because he has, he goes home to his daughter. Until now that she's in college, where I start hanging out and I start seeing the comics. Man, I'll go further back. Not like who's the next, but I think you have a good list. You have a good list. For me, like the brand new guys, I'm starting to see because I'm at the workshop, and I see these guys. I'm like, so like, shoot, if you don't mind, I tweak my question or survey or whatever, and
Okay.
I'll go even, the guys that I'm excited to see for the future is like Zach Mama.
Mm-hmm.
And I think so they're no way near headlining because they got a lot of experience they have to go through and stage time to get there. Let's see.
Charlie,
So
was he one of the ones?
Charlie, yeah. Balding 20-year-old, yeah.
Yeah.
Martha?
Martha
Montiel?
Montiel.
Is it-
Yeah.
Yeah. So her, so like these three people are different styles, but they all have a little something that you like. What? I think so. Like Martha's presence on stage, as well as Charlie's presence on stage, is really good. Zach, you can see he's putting a lot of effort in the writing and
Oh yeah.
acting out his style. That one guy that came to the workshop with the glasses,
Mike Maddox.
Mike Maddox, like
Yeah.
he was just talking, and it was funny. Like he wasn't even doing his set; he was just talking, and it was just,
Just
funny.
the way
So it
his
was like,
voice sounds. He's
Yeah.
and
And he
he
looks
said
like-
people laugh because the way that I talk.
and he looks like the guy on Mr. Deeds, the one who wants to change your socks. Very sneaky. The Spanish,
Hank
the
Azaria?
Spaniard.
Hank
No, it's not Hank
Azaria.
Azaria. No,
Yeah.
Hank Azaria is Hank Azaria is the one on Mystery Men, the spoon and fork guy.
Yeah, that's the same guy.
It's not the
Isn't
same
it?
guy.
Isn't it Hank Azaria? No. Do I have to
Google it.
Google this
Google it.
again. All right, Google it. All right.
Yes. And then let's see who else. And so these are like the
Oh,
new
he was
kids.
the Jesus from Big Lebowski. That's who it is.
Thank you, Paul. John Turturro.
John Turturro. Oh God. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank God for Paulo Gata to
Reese-
do our fact checking for us.
And Reese Paul. Jose, you wild for that one.
Oh my God, Reese crushed it on Saturday night over at Blue Note. He put together an amazing set that I had never seen him just smash that well in a really long time, and it was one of the best performances I've ever seen him do. Reese, you do that every single time you book, man, and you're bumping someone off my list.
So Reese is one of those guys that he's not brand new because I remember when he came out of high school back, Michael C. Hall days. So Reese, I would put that guy you mentioned, C. Is that he goes by C?
John
the
C.
Last name, John C. As far as the new guys that I've seen, those are the ones I'm like, oh, I see something with these guys. But I agree with your list as far as the next one to start headlining. I do see, I agree with your list there. Before I move on, let me mention, speaking of the next guys, next door, Friday, March 11th, headliner Kenny Kusaka.
Yeah.
For those of you, please get your tickets to Next Door. Kenny Kusaka is headlining. Jose will be there. I'll be there. Brandy Morgan will be there. Kevin Keller will be there. So it's an awesome lineup. We're all there to support. Kenny Kusaka is trying to take the next, the next step into stand-up comedy. I guess, trying to blow it up to the next level as a headliner.
I really feel he is the next big going to be one of the next big local acts to once people start to recognize him and see him. He's not super active at like creating video content on social media, but as far as putting together an amazing performance, he has that theater background, so all of his stuff is going to be just really well polished when he presents it, and he really gets into his characters and he knows how to present his material in just such a way that's like it's amazing to really study these guys and watch the local comics and see him like when he works on a new joke and how he's fine-tuning it. Like what we were talking about earlier when you started out writing some working on brand new jokes after your headlining set and just work it out to the point where you got to do it this last weekend and you feeling like it's finally made it. And Kenny's one of these guys. I think he's going to do some great things. Daryl deserves a lot more recognition than I think as a scene we've really been giving him. But he's in a similar situation that you and I have been in, where he's got a young, a young kid she's either a freshman in high school or just going in, or where she has a lot of stuff and a lot of activities, and you got to be be responsible for taking care of the family. And
he's a proud girl dad. So every time we see each other, we're like, "Hey, girl dad," and we're like, proud. And his daughter is now in high school playing sports. So he's. I told him, I said, that's what it is. A lot of people, and they ask, how do you, a good parent or whatever is just be there. Most of it is just be there. And kids don't care if you're wrong or you're right, or if you have a lot of money. If you don't, I mean, that does affect some things, but being there is like the majority of the thing. It's like just being there for them. So I told him, I was like, wanted to do more things with him, but I understand that he wants to be at her sporting events or school events, and I think she's also following his footsteps and taking drama class. So
she's taking drama? Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, you never know. They could end up in something together in the future. But yeah, Daryl Bonilla is. It's funny because Daryl Bonilla will open for other people, and then we'll do clean comedy. He can do dirty, but his stories doesn't need it. But then I don't think I've ever seen him swear. I've seen him at other showcases. I've seen him at other showcases where the room was not set up for it. This was that remix, and the crowd. I mean, it wasn't that many people, and there was like some people who just looked entitled, like talking, and he had cordless mic, walking around the room and going after people, swearing up a storm and attacking them, but in a comedic way. And I was like, that's the best Daryl Bonilla I've ever seen, because the room was kind of rude, but he had them, in his hands, and everybody was just like cheering, and he burnt that place down. And it was just so, because it was him, he was there, me, Tumor, I forget who else was there, but when I went, I struggled. I was like, because the room wasn't really paying attention, and I was still in storytelling style, whereas now I'm more in your face, or trying to be, and just watching Daryl go and then get these people. Oh, it's hilarious. It was this one woman, white woman or girl. She looked like maybe like 22 or something, blonde hair, entitled, and she was with some like Eastern European dude with a heavy accent, and he looked like he was her sugar daddy. And she was just like, And he just went after both of them, then walked around the room and went after other people. I was like, oh, snap. We just seen, like, I don't think, like you say, you've never seen it. And I saw it and I was like, holy crap. That was the best Daryl Bonilla I've ever seen. But going back to Reese Paul, because has a little screws loose with his thoughts, he could be like crazy funny. But I think he knows he has a few, loose nuts and bolts in there that he pulls back a little because he doesn't want to, I guess, go too far. But like I had him on the podcast a couple episodes before, and I was telling him, I was like, man, just let him have it because you are funny. And, like I guess there's a joke about, he was saying that I guess because Biden is so fragile and old that he's probably the president that you can hold down and molest. But he pulled it back and says he's the president that you can hold down and kiss. So he says you can hold down that president and kiss him. I actually liked, the first way, if he held down the president and molested him. I mean, I wouldn't want that to happen in real life, but I thought that was funnier. So Reese Paul, because of the way he thinks, can be amazing. I just think he needs more stage time. Because he can polish his material.
Well, he wasn't coming out for, about 2 years just because he and his wife, they had a newborn baby right when the pandemic happened. And so he just, he was working the whole time, but didn't want to come out and expose his whole family to anything. And so he's just now starting to come back and kind of getting his stage legs back, if you will. And I remember when we first came back after being down for about 6 months, how rusty we felt. So I can only imagine about 2 years of just like, okay, trying to remember how did some of these jokes go and all that. I'll tell you, I'm super excited because this past week it was just such a great, a great way for how the scene has truly grown from before when it was just, like when I was doing it, it was just the Sharkies Comedy Club was the only place in town where comics could get stage time. And there was maybe about a dozen or less comics that were coming out every single week and getting stage time. And then obviously, Laugh Track Theater opened up several years later. I think that's when you got is that when you got your start? Was it after Laugh Track? I know Sparkles got his start there. Michael C. Hall.
So I started out just before Laugh Track started.
Okay.
And then when Laugh Track came around, it was only the third Thursday of every month. And I didn't know about, a lot of us didn't know about Elroy's place at All-Star Cafe.
No, All-Star had shut down at that time. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
it was every third Thursday we would meet up at Laugh Track Theater. It would be 30 of us signed up and just got your 5 minutes of fame and then that was it. It was no other place. And then after for me came On the Spot Improv. Garrick Paikai was doing is it Arthur? No, not Arthur Murray. It was a dance studio in Aiea, and he did every Friday.
Rosalie Woodson Dance Studio,
which was basically hardwood, mirrors everywhere, and folding chairs, and you would stand up, no microphone, and it was the same 5 people in the audience every week. So that was a struggle. But for me, it was to get out there and try to work on things. Comedy Corner, look at my man over here. I haven't seen in a long time. Ozell Daniel. Funny and subjective, who shows up on time, sober, with paying audience members, and a good work ethic. Agreed. I agree.
That's very.
But
That is very, very, very important. Is
yeah,
showing up on time and showing up sober. And I want to remind all of the comics, if you are tuning in now, the show at Taqueria El Ranchero starts at 9 p.m. We open the doors at 8:30. It is about a 40-minute drive from Waikiki. So please, please plan accordingly, because there's many times where I can't start the show because the comics aren't there on time. And, I have people waltzing in at 9:20, and it's like, I was going to put you on first. And I don't know if it's their ego or they just don't plan good enough, but traffic's not really that bad going out to the west side over at that time. So yeah. And Ozell, actually, when I first started doing the mics, Ozell was running Gussie Lamore's on the Monday nights. And that's where the expression of that you were talking about remix, I would call it combat comedy, where you're just in there and it's you versus the audience a lot of times, where you just have to you're struggling to get them on your side. It's almost like a fight. But I was going to say kind of about with talking about Laugh Track, because at the time it was just Sharky's was the only open mic.
Yep.
And then eventually they stopped doing their open mic once after they moved to, I think it was the Princess Kaiulani. And then when Laugh Factory opened up, it was run by Shannon Winpenny, who has an extensive background of improv but not as much stand-up, if I'm not mistaken. And so a lot of the techniques and it seemed like a lot of the comics that were coming out from that had more of an improv background as opposed to a stand-up background. And
Scott
I remember
Hanada.
and then obviously Michael C. Hall started the Comedy Hawaii over at it was at several places before eventually finding the home Wednesday nights at Indigo. And I remember a lot of the comics that were there, you didn't have, I think Sean Felipe might have been the most seasoned comic in the scene that was regularly performing there. And so you have a lot of open mic comics that are putting on shows for other comics that might just be open mic comics and not really have the whole technique or understand getting your timing down or building a set. And because there's not enough comics, you're doing a 10 and 15 minute set on stage when you weren't really prepared to hold down a 5-minute set. And
I think that's a lot of the comics in our scene today don't really understand the difference between a showcase and headlining. So the showcase, which is you get your 10 or 15 or 20, depending on the promoter or who's ever running the show. But it has to be really tight 10 minutes or really tight 15 minutes, whatever time that you have. If there's a lull in your set and you're only doing 10 minutes, you are not a headliner. You're not ready until you have, like, if you have a super tight 20 that you can stretch into an hour. I mean, even that's not good.
I would even say taking 20 minutes and stretching that into an hour makes you a headliner. I think being able to do at least 40 minutes solid of nonstop funny material. And you should have even longer than 40 minutes. You should have at least like an hour and 15 minutes that you can pull material
you gotta have that arc where, because when you do that long, it can't be straight laughing all the way through because you tire the crowd out. I think that's where when in my set on February 2nd, I put that brand new bit. Didn't really have punchlines, but it was to let the crowd, recover and then back into something that I know works. and because I was trying to go as long as I could until I saw the staff. It was like, okay, they're not drinking anymore. And I was at hour and 5, I think, and knowing that a Hana Ho was coming, so I came back up there like another 10:15, which it's funny because when I went backstage, I was like, man, I only did I just did half of my set. I have half more to go, but because of the timing and the crowd laughing and whatever, it stretches so long. So yeah, if you have like a tight 20 to 30, it could be stretched out to an hour. But understand that just because you crush 10 minutes, you're not a headliner yet. Another thing about headliners, so you can do an hour material, or like you said, 45 minutes. I think most contracts is 45 minutes, right?
Around there, yeah.
So if you can do 45 minutes, but you can't draw, like you can't, people won't come to the show. That's the next thing. It's like you can headline, but nobody's coming to see you. So like that was one of my main concerns, because I don't think I'm a strong draw. So
here's the other
month that
thing.
came up,
Just because you can draw a lot of people, but you don't have 10 minutes, that doesn't make you a headliner either. And don't expect to headline that soon just because, hey, I have 30 people coming to see me. Just do your 10 minutes and be happy. Make the crowd laugh. Like, keep it very, keep the show funny. You want your friends to keep coming out and supporting you. Because if you burn every single joke that you have that one time, headlining, and every single time it's the same stuff, your friends are going to stop showing up and supporting you. I mean, I know that. I've seen that so many times, and we both have. Like, a lot of times the comics that are brand new into the scene, they're not entrenched into the comedy lifestyle where all of their friends are comics yet, where they still actually have friends that are, we'll call them civilians, if you will, that their friends come out and support them. And then after a while, you see some of those people sort of taper off, but then you get new friends that come out and start supporting you. But it's important to know kind of what your role is in the show. If you're an opener and you have 5 minutes, crush those 5 minutes and work to get more time. And that's what it's all about, is working to get more time. I see that Hobbs just made a comment over there, and I've talked to him in some messages a lot. I talked to a lot of the comics on the side, and this past weekend was the first time I'd seen him perform in a couple of years, and it was the best set that I'd ever seen him do, ever. And I know he's been working really hard and takes a lot of the, when I give comics a lot of constructive criticism, and I know it might sound like it's very critical, and it is, I don't like to sugarcoat things, and I want to be very honest with you, especially if you're looking to grow as a performer. If you want to get more stage time, I have the opportunities to try and get you more stage time and help you get more stage time. And if you're not willing to take the critique and learn from it, from what the promoter is telling you need to do in order to get stage time, then you're just going to be forced to go do your own show. And I'm not going to book you until I find out that you're actually getting funny. That's pretty much a criteria that I have, is try and be funny. And I'll give a lot of people different chances. And sometimes comics might get even more chances, even if they screw up, than maybe they deserve. Or if they were sitting in LA or another city, maybe they did something, it could get them like, okay, you're not going to be working here ever again because there's so many other comics. But it's something that's whole part of the process of, we're trying to grow here as a scene, and you're part of the scene. I've had arguments with different comics where I told them they're not ready, and they'd get pissed off they'd go do their own show. Their show failed, and then they showed up at an open mic, and they were just like, they kind of came back at the open mic just very apologetic, or I don't want to say like tail between their legs, and it's like, no, dude, it's fine. You're welcome here. You know, you don't need to be scared to come here to the open mic. We had an argument. You didn't agree with what I said, but there's a reason why I'm telling you that you're not ready, because the type of jokes you're doing is too cringe humor that you're either going to take your jokes are either going to, the audience is either going to love you or they're going to hate you. And because your style of material is so cringe, you need to be slamming every single time that it's just funny, because you're walking the line right up to the line, and too many times you're crossing it. And if I'm losing audience because you're crossing the line, that's not that's going beyond what I need in order to book you on as a solid, a solid feature or solid headliner. And that's
Well,
happened
going
a
back
couple of
to it, like
times.
with like the way Ozell Daniels approach, which is basically, and I've known Ozell for a long time. I started out, and Ozell was part of a crew that I was rolling with, but it's business minded, and this is what you're pointing out, is that if you're affecting the audience where they're not having a good time, you're affecting ticket sales. You're affecting the promoter's night. The next time he does a show, people might not come back. And you have to take, yes, this is a craft, but you have to take the approach like this is work. If you put the time into it, you'll improve. Or even if you're in sports, or if you'd rather have a sports reference, you need to train. You need to, so like the workshops that you're having, the reason I was going is like, in my head, I'm like, if I think I'm above this, I've been doing stand-up comedy for a long time. I've performed many stages on TV and all over, no, not all over the country, but mostly on the West Side. But
Yeah.
I have good credits. But if
Yeah.
I think I'm above the workshop, or I'm above, doing 10 minutes, then I'm the problem. I shouldn't be doing comedy.
Right.
So, I think some of these comics that think, oh, I bring people. All right, cool. But can you talk to them for an hour and have them and kill for an hour? It's a lot more than I want a headline. My advice is go do your 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Get it so that it's tight all the way through where you start killing. That's my time. Boom, you killed all the way through. And put that on the side. Start another 10 minutes. And build up that way. Even if it's just 5-minute blocks. Build it up till you have 20 minutes and then 30 minutes. And then you build up to that strong hour. And that's where I'm at now. Because the set that I did, it wasn't on a special. I still have it. I can still do it. But I want to add more to it. There's jokes that I've had that I don't even do anymore. Like the encore I did, the city bus jokes.
Yeah, you did all the city bus jokes as your Hana Ho, and the audience loved it, because those are some of your earliest jokes that you have. And that's something like, even when Augie first did his special live at Hawaii Theater, when the audience brought him back out for his Hana Ho, he brought all of his the local Barbie jokes that he did years ago. And it's been doing. It's all about the different local Barbie styles, and it's just one of his oldest jokes. But like his audience that had been coming out and watching him for years over at Brew Moon, and when he was performing at the Lanai and Augie Ukulele Cafe, when he first kind of in that what's that, Dole Cannery, when these are his old closers that he moved on from, and that was his Hana Ho. And when you did yours, I was like, wow, that's such a great way to do a Hana Ho, is you're bringing back something old. You're able to pull from deep within. And, to kind of add to what you're saying, the main there's two reasons why people always ask me, like, why is your open mic 3 minutes long? And there's a couple of reasons why. The first reason is if you were to look at an open mic on the mainland and say somewhere like LA, where you'll have a list of 25 different comedians that are there trying to get stage time, you're going through a lottery. You see a lot of times after those comics go up on stage, if they're doing like 10 minutes each, that show is going to be about 2.5 hours long. And if there's an audience that's there at the very beginning, slowly that audience gets chipped away until there's like nobody left for whoever the last comic is on stage. And by the time they get up, it's really hard for them to do the workout that they want to do of testing the material, because they've just sat there for 2 hours and just watched, either bad comics just walk audiences, or just their friends be like, you know what, it's too late, I'm too tired, I got to go home, and that the audience is still burned out. So I do that, one, for whoever's that on the list. Second, for the audience there, if you sit through a comic that does really well for 3 minutes, most comics can do 3 minutes pretty solid. And so if you have, let's say, one comic that does bad, okay, you saw them, it wasn't too long, the next comic comes up. If they're good, you'll keep going. If two comics in a row bomb, that's only 6 minutes of their time. By the third comic, if that comes on after them, if they do really well, the audience is like, okay, they'll be kind of back into it. But the list keeps moving pretty quickly. And then the other thing is that I've had usually the comics that are saying they need to have more time on stage are not the ones that are more established, that are funny, that are getting booked. It's always the ones that can't even hold an audience and tell jokes and get laughs in 3 minutes. One person's like, how is it possible for me to do a joke in 3 minutes? And I said, go look at Brian Regan's CD. Each of his jokes, they're about 1.5 minutes long. Each one is labeled and it's timed out. It's like, that's two of his jokes. If you can't tell a joke in 2.5 minutes, you're not really, you're not ready to get more time. Be more effective with the time that you do have.
Yeah, basically set up, punch, tag, 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 tag. Another joke, set up, punch, tag, tag, tag. That's basic joke structure. I think a lot of people think they got to go up there and tell a story. That's not true. Comedy Corner, Kelly says, in both your opinions, should social media comedians be called comedians, or should they be named social media comedians? How do you separate them, or do you? So real short, because we're getting close up on that 2 hour mark, and that kind of doesn't quite make the when we go over 2 hours, I think it affects the what do you call that, the editing
algorithms
thing.
Oh
no, I think it doesn't allow for editing on YouTube or something like that.
Okay.
Go ahead. So your opinion. This is a great question, by the way. I know how I feel, but I want to hear how you.
I believe they should be called comedians, simply because anybody that shows up to an open mic and they only do open mics, they can call themselves a comedian. And we have this debate. When do you call yourself a professional comedian? They are comedians. They're offering a form of entertainment, and they have an audience. It's like improv. You're an improv comic. I'm a stand-up comic. There's social media comics. You can call them that as like defined by what they do. I mean, there's I think the president of Ukraine was a comedic actor. I'm not sure how much of a stand-up comic he was compared to that. That's going into a different direction. But
well, it's just like Will Ferrell. He's a comedic actor.
Yeah, and just because I do stand-up comedy doesn't mean, and my passion is for stand-up, doesn't necessarily mean I'll be a great improv comic. And just because somebody is a great at improv doesn't mean they'll be great at stand up. Just because someone is
Yeah. So
great at creating content on, funny content on social media doesn't mean they'll always translate well into stand up, because there's different techniques that you need to
well, so
do.
comedians. The term comedians is people who make things that will cause their audience to laugh. I mean, I think the technical is comedian makes people laugh. Comedian makes people laugh. I think for us as stand-up comedians, we think comedians as us. I mean, I'm not saying all of us, but I think that's what we go. We call ourselves comedians, and we think of stand-up comedians. So like when on the news they would say passion, it's a comedian. Yeah, I'm like, comedian? I never seen her do stand-up. Then that's when it clicked in my head. It's like, oh, that's right. She is a comedian. She's not a stand-up comedian. There was an incident where I was going to Andy Bumatai's show at Blue Note to open for him.
I was
Paul
there.
Ogata just so happens. Yeah, is there. So we're there, and before I got in, Clown in 808, Easton James, he said, "Oh, I'm a comedian," and I was like, "Oh, I've never seen him before." Thinking I know all the comedians in Hawaii, and it's my first time meeting him, and he was mentioning Instagram, and I was like, "Oh, okay." He wanted to meet Andy Bumatai. I was like, "Oh, okay." After the show, I introduce. After the show, I go out, and it's him and Keely Sosili, and my first time meeting this guy. I wasn't huge on Instagram and didn't see the sketch comedies that they were putting out on Instagram, but they had like over 100,000 followers, and so then I brought him back and introduced him to Andy, and then Andy was like, "Oh, you guys," I was like, "Oh, Andy, you guys are comedians," and he's like, "Oh, yeah, you guys are comedians," and I was like, "Oh, yeah, we're comedians," and he said, "Oh, where do you work out of?" And he was like, "Oh, we do comedy on Instagram," and he's like, "No, what club do you work out of?" And he was like, "Oh, no, we do." So he started showing his videos. And I was like, "Oh, okay, I see here's comedians like that." So technically, comedians, and me and Paul were on the side like, they're not comedians. But it was like, we corrected ourselves like, see, look how stuck up we are as stand-up comedians. We're all like, we're comedians. Nobody else can be comedians. But technically, they are comedians. They're not. We got to specify it to stand-up comedians. So we're stand-ups.
Yeah,
We're
very
comedy.
snobbish. It's like how dare you have over 10,000 followers and people liking your videos? God damn you! Because when I post a video, I expect 5 people to like it, and I expect all 5 of them to be the comics that are at my shows, because that's who I see, and that's you're not jaded enough. You haven't earned the right. No, it's weird. We talk about this because it's when you do the social media posts, it's very easy. It's very easy to take a bad take and delete it and keep deleting it over and over and over until you get that one take right, and then you edit it, save it, and do the next one. You can't do that in stand-up, and this is a huge thing that I talked about before. Is there's a big difference between like stand-up and improv. For example, improv, a lot of times the funny is celebrated when there's a mistake made on stage where they kind of screw up somehow, and that's where it gets the blast. It gets a huge laugh, and it's like almost like a shotgun blast. Whereas stand-up, I consider it to be more like you're standing 2,000 feet away with a sniper rifle, and your timing has to be precise. And if you're off by just an inch or a fraction of a second, it throws the entire joke completely off. And so that mistake in stand-up is a major mess up compared to where improv, where it's you just go with it and you kind of celebrate it. And that's where it comes into like, okay, the guys that are creating YouTube and Instagram and TikTok content, are your jokes, will what you do translate well on stage? And in a stand-up comedy format. If it doesn't, there's always other avenues that you could kind of explore, sort of like how the Chappelle show kind of started out, where he would introduce like sketch comedy and they do sketches and stuff like that. And I know Kimmy, I always say her name wrong, Kimmy Ballerina, that does the Kimmy
Balmolero.
Kimmy Ballerina.
I'll say it. You don't say it. I'll say it.
With Improv Hawaii, she does the Hawaii Sketch Fest every year, and that's like a great opportunity for the people that are content creators to really kind of get involved if that's the direction that they want to go. And I believe she's still doing that. I'm not 100% sure. I don't have as much of a pulse on the other comedy forms like improv and sketch comedy as much as I do keeping a pulse on what's going on with stand-up comedy, because that's obviously the passion that I'm involved with and that I promote.
Mm-hmm. So going to the Comedy Corner and what Sima Paulo Gata has typed in, it's funny because Andy's told me the same thing, where I forget who he got it from. Somebody taught him, and it was like one of the old school comedians where they're saying, and he used the hand, he used his hands, where it's like, the most difficult thing to do in show business is comedy, and the most difficult thing to do in comedy is stand-up comedy. So it's very small amount of people can do stand-up comedy. So you got to appreciate what it is that stand-up comedians do. So going back to Paulo Gata saying, yes, it's okay for us to be snobs. So, yay!
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate the affirmation of and the acknowledgement of the way that we truly feel about it, and especially when it comes to open mic comics, and that we are just better than them. We are above it, which is bullshit, because we still got to get out there and hit the stage and work on material. And even there's occasion now I'm like, okay, I have a couple of new jokes that I'm working on, and you'll see me at the end of the open mic on a Tuesday or Wednesday. Well, I'll get up and try and work on a small 3-minute set or something. Or even if anybody's watching this and you're funny, or you have friends that are funny that you think they should come out and try it, King's Pizza is a great place to go on a Friday and Saturday night as well. And that's been, that's where Tumua got his very first start on stage, was at King's Pizza. And immediately after he got off stage that night, I actually got a message from Erica saying, you got to see this new guy. He's a Samoan kid that's like a football player for UH. He's only like 20 years old, and he is hilarious. He does local comedy. And then Tumua came to Anna's, and as soon as I saw him, I was like, oh my God, dude, you are funny. Come to O'Toole's. And he came to O'Toole's that Friday night, and he's got some of the most amazing work ethic of any comic that I've ever seen, where he's constantly writing and constantly working on his craft and trying to develop it. And as you even pointed out, like when I was doing the workshops before he really blew up, he was coming to every single workshop. And then when I started that one that you and him came to a couple of weeks ago, it was a pleasant surprise to see him. But also the comics you had some comics that were there that are just a month into it, and they're seeing, someone that had headlined 3 shows at the Blaisdell Concert Hall, sitting there being part of the Hawaii community. And I'm just going to say, humbling themselves that, hey, I need to work out too. Or just like, you can see he gets something out of it. That's why he's there. And for these comics to see, that I'm definitely, okay, if he's getting something out of it, I can get something out of it, And, I'm not saying my workshops.
Well, the following week, there was a lot of comics that showed up. And, Tumua always tells me that, so like for me, Laugh Track Theater was, I guess, like the first place I was going regularly, kind of like my workout place. For Tumua, it's Anna O'Brien's. He always says, Anna O'Brien's is like his home base for stand-up comedy. That's where he worked out a lot of his materials. And That's why he enjoys going there. I prefer, Slack Key because that's, I always at Hawaiian Brian's. So that's why you always see me at Hawaiian Brian's on Tuesdays. Tumor will pop in sometimes, but they will tell me, no, I'm going to go to Anna's on Wednesday. So we all have our favorite places, I guess. But I think when we get to a point where we think we're above it, that's when we'll start to fall apart. So when I talk to him, we're always talking about, yeah, let's go work on this, let's go work on that. Sometimes we'll meet up at a Zippy's or something with Graham Elwood, and then we'll, oh, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? Or throwing ideas around each other, and that's just part of it. Doing the work.
And that's a hard part for someone like me, because a lot of times a lot of the comics are, I don't know how much they're actually looking up to me and as a comic and my material, or if they're just kind of like because I produce shows that if they think that he's at a certain level, I don't really get like you've seen me like operate when I'm watching people's sets. I'll write tags all the time and give comics tags, and I'll message them like, oh, here's an idea. And I love doing that. And I love when I give them a tag and when they use it and then seeing it like, oh, that's so awesome that it worked. And I don't know if you kind of feel this way, but it's like, I don't know if the younger comics, if they're too intimidated to offer any sort of tags or suggestions, because I'm willing to listen to things, because I love getting feedback. I love hearing different points of views as well, because this is like I always say, I'm part of the scene. I push Comedy U more so than I push at Jose Dynamite, because Comedy U is the umbrella for the entire scene, and it's almost in a way bigger than me, because it encompasses everybody, where we're including the comics that have been doing it for a long time at like Tumua's level and your level and my level, and then we do the open mics, and it's the comics that are brand new. And a cool thing that a lot of comics will tell you in the scene is that they come into the scene and they're very welcomed right from the get-go, and we really embrace them and get them, like, tell them where all the mics are, and they start coming out, and we try and offer as much guidance to the younger guys as much as possible. Maybe not necessarily, hey, don't do this joke, or don't say this, or somebody else has a joke too. Still, like, we don't offer too much. Sometimes in the workshops we'll offer a little bit more, but for the most part,
for me personally, personally, I'm like, I will listen to the advice. I'll take, like, when you give me notes, it's like, oh, okay, I get it. Okay. So some of the stuff that you mentioned after February 2nd, I've been consciously working on. You say this a lot. You didn't say this, and but it's kind of like the ego comes in. It's like, man, why didn't I think about that? Why did I think? You know what I mean? So it's like understanding that you can't think of everything, and knowing that you have friends around to say, hey, try this with that. DJ Sandu, who's from Sacramento, based out of Vegas now, when he came down, and man, he had like a napkin that had all these notes, and he handed it to me right when I got off the stage. I only did 10 minutes, I think. And then it's like, so I looked at it, like, so it's the same thing with when you gave me your notes a couple of days after the February 2nd show. It's like you got to understand where it's coming from. It's not a person trying to say, here's some notes, I'm better than you. It's, here's some notes, I care about you, and I think this might, make you even funnier or even better. So try this. And part of it too, when you give it to me, it's like, it sparks another thought. So it's like, oh yeah. And then, oh yeah. And then all of a sudden the mind just keeps going, and it's like, oh, that's this, and it connects this, and oh, that's perfect. So even though you don't use what was written, it might inspire your other thoughts. So be open-minded. Be, as like Bruce Lee said, be like water. So
be a sponge. And coachability is something that's really surprisingly important in this, especially when you're kind of starting out, because and this isn't for me to say that I'm better than anybody, but if I'm the promoter, I'm going to be trying to pay attention to the younger comics that are coming up and the open mic. And if you start getting laughs and I see that you're starting to get laughs, I'll tend to pay attention a lot more than if somebody's like, nobody's laughing at them. Or if somebody's laughing a little bit at a comic that's kind of starting out, and I'll go offer a few tips. Hey, I think this would help you out. And then if they just keep ignoring it, it's like, okay, they're not really showing an interest to try and take it to the next level. I don't know if, I understand as comics, we kind of have a different way of way that we think inherently with us, that we're doing this art form where we get up on stage and sometimes talk about some of the most uncomfortable things we could possibly, say. But it's always important to, like, okay, you have to, your material always has to be able to adapt and grow and not get too personally attached with some of your jokes, because eventually you may need to let them go. And it's good to do that, because then you're going to force yourself to grow and add new material, and the new material that's replacing the old material should be better than the stuff that you're getting rid of. And yeah,
It could be. Cool.
Could be.
Hey man, I appreciate you being on the podcast, man. I appreciate
you
being on the podcast.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, we got a lot of people watching, so I appreciate you guys that are watching live. Thank you so much. We'll definitely have you on the podcast again, but we'll definitely be working together a lot more. So remember, ComedyUHI.com. Scroll down, see all the events, see what nights you're off. You can make it. Go check out the shows. There's tons of shows that Jose and Kelly are bringing out to the people of Oahu. Thank you so much for all the info. There's so much more. We still haven't got to Jose. We were talking about Comedy U and the scene. So we'll definitely have you on again. So those of you that are watching, please share. Those of you that will listen to on wherever you listen to podcasts, please share. Let people know. Subscribe. Hit the notification button. Thank you, Jose. I really appreciate you.
Thank you.
And
sorry, great running last out of time, comment, though. Kevin Chang. Great comment, Kevin Chang. See that? Pop that one up. Can you pop that one up? Yes. Excellent show.
All right, brother. I'll talk to you later. See you, Jose.
Have a good night.
And that's Jose Dynamite, ladies and gentlemen. That was awesome. Thank you guys for listening. We're reaching that 2-hour mark. Editing kind of gets weird when we go over 2 hours. It doesn't allow me to post on everything. So I don't have much time to sign off. But thank you guys for listening to the episode. But I'm out of here.